Job's comforters, to me, is how the advice they give is so similar to the stuff we say in church. These guys are so apparently fundamental in what they have to say. Look at the Pharisees in the New Testament. A lot of their verbiage and a lot of their speeches and a lot of their rhetoric sounded right. When you read it, you're like, oh, wow. And then when you find out who said it, you're like, oh, well, it's got to be wrong. Pretty much you're right that it's going to be wrong. But Jesus had some of the most condemning words to say about these guys. Now, why? I mean, here they're saying something that apparently is correct, but Jesus just kicks them in the teeth. Why would he do that? Now, look at Romans chapter 11 and verse 1. Well, I'll read it. You stay in Job 11. Romans 11:33. Now, listen carefully. Oh, the depth of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and his ways past finding out. Don't you love that? I like that. You know, Paul just breaks out into this anthem and he praises the Lord for the depth of his riches, and we quote that, and we find great comfort in something like that. What just a great thing to say about God. Well, Zophar in his speech is going to say basically the same thing. Look in chapter 11, and we're going to begin reading verse number 1. Then answered Zophar. Now he's the youngest. According to Oriental custom, the youngest always spoke last. So this is the last of these three guys. We're going to find out later in the book there's actually a fourth one that they didn't say anything. He was silent for a long time. Anyway, these three are the main guys. Zophar, the Naamathite, and said, should not the multitude of words be answered? Somebody's got to say something. There was a preacher one time, his deacon cussed real bad, and another church member came to him and said, preacher, you got to do something. I mean, he's just ruining the church's name. He's cussing all over town. And the preacher said, all right, I'll take him fishing. And they were fishing, and the preacher hooks up, with a slab, this great big, huge fish. And he fights him and fights him and fights him and gets him right up to the boat, and he breaks off. And the preacher looks at the deacon, he says, somebody ought to say something. And so here's Zophar. He's heard Job now. And now he says, well, somebody ought to speak up and tell you to shut up. Because all your words, they're just hollow. Should not the multitude of words be answered? And should a man full of talk, I love full of talk, it means a man of lips. You know anybody that's a man of lips or a woman of lips, So it says, shall a man of lips be justified? Should thy lies make men, and the word men here means men of sense. And so here's what Zophar is saying. Should a man of lips, are you really trying to convince men that have common sense that you're right? And of course, who's the one with common sense here? Zophar, of course, of course, he's the one of common sense. He says, should thy lies make men hold their peace? And when thou mockest, shall no man make thee ashamed? Really? You think you're going to get away with this? And it takes somebody like me to put you in your place. And so Zophar takes the microphone, and it's open mic night here, and so Zophar's on it. And he says in verse number 4, for thou hast said. Now what's going to get kind of funny here, Job never says this. In all of his speeches, he never makes the statement that Zophar is about to say he made. For thou hast said, my doctrine is pure. And the word doctrine there doesn't mean my list of theological beliefs. That's not what he's talking about. The things that I assume to be true. In other words, these are things that his parents taught him, that his culture taught him. What are some things that your parents taught you that you have just always grown to understand to be true? Lock your doors. Just all kind of stuff. And then after my mom and dad got through in the day, then I went to school. I learned stuff at school that I still assume is true today. And then I had friends, and the friends told me stuff that. So anyway, that's the deal here. All of the things that you assume that you've learned in life, you think they are pure. Job never said that. Not one time did Job say, the stuff I believe, there's nothing wrong with it. Everything I believe is pure. And I'm clean in thine eyes. And so he's charging him with saying something he didn't even say. Now listen to verse 5. But oh, that God would speak and open his lips against it. I wish the Lord would just open his mouth and blow you out of the water. But since he's not going to say anything, he asked me to do it for him. I'll take I got him. And so Zophar now is the man of lips that he's going to speak for God. And that he would show thee the secrets of wisdom, that they are double to that which is. In essence, the Lord is twice as wise as you think he is. And apparently Zophar thought Job had just had said this, I'm at the bottom of God's wisdom. I know God's mind, and this is, I've not done anything wrong, so he's defending himself. And Zophar says, it's twice as deep, buddy. You just think you've reached the bottom, but it's twice as deep. So it's double. Matter of fact, know therefore that God exacteth of thee less than thine iniquity deserveth. Now there's what you want to tell somebody that is broken, right? That's what you want to say. Oh, you think this is bad? God should have done twice what he did to you. I mean, who in their right mind would say that? Now keep in mind, Job is sitting around the campfire covered with ash. He's got these lesions all over him, like leukemia of the skin. He's bald. He shaved all his head, and I'm sure he cut his scalp, and it's dried, and he's covered with ash. He's got 10 grave markers over here. He's got the house is in pieces over here. All of his sheep are dead. All of his servants have been killed. Well, God didn't do half to you what he should have done. Well, that's the kind of friend you want, right? Now, exactly. So now, can you hear his heart? He's really mad at Job, and you can sense a little bit of, you deserve all this and more. A little bit of self-righteous, what I like to refer to as sour godliness. Just pure, sour godliness. I think the man was saved, I do. But I think his heart was so far from the Lord that with his lips he drew close, but with his heart he was... The Chinese have a saying that when they're face to face, there's 1,000 miles between them. And that's what's going on here. Now, listen to Zophar. And remember what we read in Romans 11:33. Oh, the depth of the riches, and we love that. Verse number 7. Canst thou by searching find out God? Canst thou find out the Almighty unto perfection? Can you penetrate his perfections? It is as high as the heaven. What canst thou do? Deeper than hell. What canst thou know? The measure thereof is longer than the earth and broader than the sea. Now, what's the difference? We read Romans 11:33, the depth of his riches and all that, and we're like, yes, that'll preach. And then now Zophar says basically the same thing, and we're like, yeah. Why? Somebody turn to John 10 and read verse 10. John 10:10. And listen to what Jesus says here, and then I'm going to read something else that Zophar said, and then we'll back up a little bit. Whoever gets it. Okay. I'm come that they might have life and have it more abundantly. That was the purpose of Christ coming. Now listen. This is Zophar. For then thou shalt lift up thy face without spot. When you get your heart right, when you do what I'm telling you to do, you're not going to be... You remember what he said last week? I walk around like this, and I can't even look people in the eye because they think I'm just this wicked guy. And he said, well, when you get your heart right, after you do what I tell you to do, you're going to be able to hold your head up. You're going to be so proud, everything's going to be okay. For then thou shalt lift up thy face without spot. Yea, thou shalt be steadfast and shalt not fear, because thou shalt forget thy misery and remember it as waters that pass by. It's just going to be like water under the bridge. It's all going to be gone. And thine anger, or verse 17, and thine age shall be clearer than the noonday. In other words, the rest of your life's going to be like noonday. What kind of promise is that to make somebody? You'll never have any more trouble. Just do what I tell you to do, and you're in the clear for the rest of your life. All this troubled water is going to be gone. and it's just going to be sunshine for the rest of your life. Thou shalt shine forth, thou shalt be as the morning, thou shalt be secure because there's hope. Yea, thou shalt dig about thee, and thou shalt take thy rest in safety. In other words, you're going to dig, this dig about thee is make wells, and the water will come up. You'll be able to irrigate all your crops. You'll be in great shape. And thou shalt lie down, and none shall make thee afraid. Yea, thou shalt make suit. Many shall make suit unto thee. Make suit. You know what it means to make suit to somebody according to Zophar here? It means to stroke the face. Guys, have you ever taken your wife's face and you are so pretty? You ever done that? Sure you have. Yes, okay. Even as we speak, it has happened. Even as we speak. And so, in essence, what Zophar is saying, you're going to be so well-liked, people they're going to fawn all over you if you just follow my great counsel. That's all you got to do. All right, now go back to this guy. How does that strike you? The verses that I've just read to you compared to the things that were said of and about Christ in the New Testament, how does that strike you? Is it kind of hollow? To me, it's just kind of like hitting a barrel, there's nothing in it. And that's exactly the case. Zophar was, you would think now, would you kind of feel a little sympathy for Job? For 10 chapters, it's been bam, bam, bam. The guy's knocked out. Why are you kicking him in the ribs? He's down. Leave him alone. But no, here comes Bildad and then Elihu, and they are just beating the dog water out of this guy. And you would think that Zophar would come along and say, hey, here, let me help you up, man. Good night. Here, let me wipe the blood off the corner of your mouth. But no, he puts his square-toed boots on and goes to work on Job and just beats the dickens out of him. So, there are some... Yes, ma'am. You smelled jealousy. Tell me about it. Oh, about Job, the stuff that he had, you mean? Okay. Very well could be. And that kind of brings up an interesting point, Sister Charlotte. Have you ever seen somebody just so incredibly successful, and then something happens to them, and inside, you're kind of like, I knew it, And so there very well could be a little bit of going on here.
Well, they had to believe that Job had done something bad.
Right.
They were banking the fact that it was never anything that was never going to happen
To them.
They
Right.
couldn't believe that anything like this would ever happen
Right.
to them because they thought their past didn't have this dark thing that Job had.
Right. Well, here's what's going on here. They kind of hammered the tent peg of themselves down in the ground and said, all right, Job, we're going to measure everything by this. If you were like me, none of this would have happened. You see, there's none of this stuff that's in your heart is in our heart. None of it. Well, what was in his heart? What kind of wickedness, what kind of crime had he committed? Had he stolen somebody's 401k? Did he move his property line over to absorb the guy next door, 40 or 50 acres of his property? No. You remember last week, what's going on here? What was the double-blind test? And it was important that Job not know what was going on. And we looked at that last week. What if the Lord had said, all right, Job, we're going to have crushing practice here, and I'm going to turn the devil loose on you, and he's going to take all your money, and he's going to kill all your kids, and you're going to get really, really sick. But I want you to know this is just a test, and so we're going to really show him, right? And so what I want you to do, buckle up, hang on, and I'm going to bless you. The end is going to be better than the beginning. Everybody, you got that, Job? Oh, okay, Lord. Would that not have been easier for Job to take? But it also would have ruined the test. This had to be a blind test, and this man got blindsided by Satan. Under God's permission? Yes. But what was the purpose of it? To prove Satan wrong. Did it work? Did Job, was he serving the Lord because he was wealthy? Was he serving the Lord because his family was prosperous? Was he serving the Lord because of all of these things? That was the charge. And it was a false charge. But the only way to prove that false was just to turn it loose and let it go. It's just like the Abraham thing we talked about. If the Lord had told Abraham, now take him up to Mount Moriah, and when you get there, I'm going to have a ram hung up in the bushes over there. You're not going to have to kill your son, but let's make it look like that, okay? And so you raise it and wait till I give you the signal. So he's like, I'm waiting, Lord. Abraham. Oh, okay, If he'd have told him what was going on, it would have nullified the test. And so why do these things happen? Well, it very well could be that Satan has been up and down, to and fro in the earth, and he's found you. And the Lord has said something like, where you been? Hardy County. He seems to spend a lot of time in Hardy County. So, been Hardy. Well, have you noticed my servant? Put your name in there. Yeah, they're prosperous, they're healthy, they're, well, I know why. Because you blessed them. And could it be that this same thing is being repeated? So, my encouragement to all of us is buckle up. Will God abandon his people? Jamie?
Well, I think we need to remind ourselves of enhancing our expectations that there are probably people that are willing to believe uncorroborated evidence that we did something very bad.
What? People do that? You're exactly right. The charge is proof enough. Just making the charge is proof enough. So what we're looking at here, there is a very vicious accusation given against Job, and somebody needs to put a stop to this nonsense. And so Zophar volunteers to be the prosecutor. And in these first 6 verses, there is, I am the man for this job. And this young kid who has no life experience at all just kind of throws his hat in the ring. And from his pool of wisdom, from his deep pool of wisdom, he knows that Job is hiding some kind of indiscretion. He knows it. And the proof is, Job, look at you, buddy. God doesn't do stuff like this unless you have done some bad thing in your life. Question, is that theologically correct? So, if it's not true in Job's life, is it possible that it's not true in somebody else's life? Is this a precedent here? So he just continues this same frontal attack launched by his older predecessors. And this committee of 3 is going to find some dirt if they have to make it up. And that's exactly what they did. They made it up.
What was your definition of committee?
It's the confusion of one person multiplied by the number present is what a committee is. And so verse number 5, going back, oh that God would speak and open his lips against you. I wish the Lord would do this, but since he's either gone or incapable or unwilling, I'm going to step up and take his place. And I'm going to tell you what God would tell you. And so listen to me, you're listening to God. All right? Pretty bold statement. And so I don't know. Have you ever been through a situation where you honestly thought God was mad at you? He didn't love you anymore, or you were abandoned. You were I don't know what it is, but
Didn't understand what he was doing.
Yeah, and as if he owed us explanation, and he owes us nothing. Have you ever seen? I don't know if Sister Charlotte, this is the way you do your cross stitch or whatever it is, but I've seen these, I guess cross stitch. And you look at underneath, you hold the frame up. Underneath, it's just those little strings hanging down, all kind of colors, and there is no pattern at all. It just looks like string hanging down from the ceiling. And then you turn it over, and it's a mountain with flowers and birds. You're like, that can't be the same thing, but it is. Now, we see things like this, and it just looks like there is no pattern. This is ridiculous. Life is random. It's just, there's no order to it. Nobody's in charge. Apparently, nobody is in charge of the insane asylum here. But what we don't see is God's perspective. You know, we don't see how the things that happen in your life, there's a perfect purpose for it. Now, I know that may be hard to swallow, but I'm just telling you that we have a seamstress in heaven that knows how to make the pattern perfect. And he does not have a mirror showing, now Jim, if it's okay with you, here's what I want to do. He doesn't ask my permission. He just knows what to do. And on occasion, you're going to run into a Zophar that's going to represent God in your life, going to tell you, well, here's why this happened. And they no more know why that happened than anything. These three guys, you talk about insufferable windsocks. These guys, they just come in. They have no idea what just went on in heaven, did they? They have no clue that the Lord turned Satan loose. They had no clue that this was a double-blind test to see if this man was as if Satan was, what he charged him to be. And so these guys just come in, and they see the end game. And now they're explaining what happened. And they're dumb as a post. But they sound so, do what? They had no clue. Exactly, yeah. And again, there's this assumption of wisdom. And I get tickled at preachers that know everything. And not just preachers, but people. They can explain God's will about anything and everything. And your pastor can't do that. I'm just telling you up front. There's stuff about God make me scratch my head with both hands. I'm like, what in the world? But here's what I have learned. I have learned that God is a being that in essence is holy. All right? In essence, in nature. It's not that he's so disciplined that he doesn't do wrong. He doesn't contain the capacity to do wrong. Now, I do and you do. And we do it probably pretty regularly. But it is not possible for God to do the wrong thing. God can't do everything. Scripture says it's impossible for God to lie. It is morally impossible for God to misrepresent the truth. He can't. You say, well, you mean he can't even if he wanted to? That's the thing. He can't want to. Now, there may be times when I want to lie to you. I have the capacity to do that. And sometimes I have the desire to do that. But God doesn't. He is so unlike what we are accustomed to dealing with. And, he doesn't sit on the throne with, I am not going to do the wrong thing today. I'm going to be a good boy. I'm going to do the right thing today. He doesn't struggle with those issues like we do. Everything God does is right. So if that be true, and theologically it is, and in practice it is, then the things that he allows into my life, there's a perfect, non-sinful purpose for that. And if I resist those things, I'm resisting the will of God in my life. I'll pay a price for that. So, this young guy just breaks out in beginning of verse number, look at verse 7. Can you by searching find out God? What's the answer to that? It's a rhetorical question, and the answer is no. No, we can't find out God. Canst thou find out the Almighty unto perfection? Another rhetorical question. The assumed answer is no. No. It is high as the heaven. Is that right? That is correct. What canst thou do? Another rhetorical question. Nothing. Deeper than hell, what canst thou know? The measure thereof, and then he goes into to the dimensions of time and space here. He says, the measure thereof is longer than the earth. If I'm not mistaken, the circumference of the earth is what, 25,000 miles? Which means the radius of the earth is what, 12.5? So from one side to the other is 12,500 miles. It's broader than the sea. That's, I don't know what the width of all the seas put together is. Is he correct about those things? Is God's wisdom, understanding, love, character, nature, knowledge broader than the seas and deeper? Is that true theologically? Yes, it is. If he cut off, in other words, if he kills and shut up, that means put in prison. If he puts you in prison or gather together, then who can hinder it? What are you going to do about it? If God has a mind to do this, what are you going to do? What can you do to stop this almighty person who is broader than this, higher than that, deeper than this? Nothing. The answer is nothing. For he knoweth vain men, that men of emptiness, which, Job, you happen to be one. He seeth wickedness also. Will he then not consider it? This God who knows everything, and his wisdom is deeper than anything, higher than anything, broader than anything, longer. All the dimensions they exceed any known measurement, and you think you're going to be able to understand him and, have all this knowledge against the Lord? And then he gives this ridiculous illustration. He says, for a vain man would be wise, though man be born like a wild ass's colt. That's kind of a weird statement right there. But what we're talking about now in verse number 12 is, Job, you will be wise when a wild jackass gives birth to a tame colt. Now, when's that going to happen? When will a wild jackass give birth to a tame colt? The day that happens, Job, you're going to understand God. In essence, he was saying, Job, you are stupid. You've always been stupid. And so I think maybe there is a little bit of hint of, when we passed by your property years ago and we saw all this stuff, it was just great and wonderful and you were wealthy. You've always been stupid. And you're always going to be stupid. And you'll be stupid till the day a wild jackass has a tame colt. And so he's giving him no hope. Verse 13. Now he's going to tell him, if you listen to me, here's what you need to do. If thou prepare thine heart and stretch out thine hands toward him. This was typical. Of course, this is pre-Abraham. Genesis 11 and 12. Between Genesis 11 and Genesis 12, the book of Job takes place. So Abraham is not even on the scene yet. The priesthood, none of that stuff is even in existence yet. But yet the Jew prayed with his hands up. It was a symbol of submission. They never did this. They never waved at Jesus or waved at, they never prayed like that. It was always like this. Now, it is a sign of vulnerability. If you have children, and when they were little, and they came running up to you, what does this mean? How many of you said something like this? Get away from me, you little Pentecostal. Anybody ever say that? What was your response to this? Did you get down on your knees and say, come here? And then you get grandkids. And you run to them. They don't have to run to you. You run to them. But this just means, Daddy, would you hold me? Hold me? And that's usually some of the first words they say. Hold me? And oh my word, that just draws from the heart of a normal person. This desire, oh my goodness, that kid wants to be close to me. That kid wants to put his arms around me, and they'll kiss all over you. And that it is a sign of, I want to be close to you. So, Zophar is saying, if you would just do this. How does he know Job hadn't been doing that? How does he know that in the dark watches of the night, Job has not sat down by this dead campfire, won't even go in his house? And how do you know that Job didn't get on his knees and say, Father in heaven, I don't understand this, but I trust you totally and completely. And during that whole process, and this is in human terms, and I'm aware, but it helps me get a little better grip on, can you just see God sitting on the throne looking at Satan going, what was that you said? He worships me because of what? And the whole case just falls apart right there in front of the throne of God. That's what I want to happen in all of our lives. That Satan is just made a fool of because of the charges that are brought against us that are proven wrong by the way we behave in these situations. All right, where are we? Verse 14. If iniquity be in thine hand, put it far away. Well, he goes right back to this, something's wrong, and you get it right. And let not wickedness dwell in thy tabernacles. Of course, they didn't have tabernacles, but this means your house. And so he said, Job, you need to clean your house up, buddy. You need to clean your house up. There's stuff going on in your home, in your family. And so there's a little bit of a jab at his wife right here. You know, you're married, your family. Of course, he doesn't have any kids to clean up now. They're gone. And so he said, don't put up with wickedness in the privacy of your home. Stop doing that, is the accusation. And on the other side of that, he's saying, you're allowing this to happen. Stop it. Stop it. Well, what was going on in his house that was wicked? The Bible doesn't say anything was going on in his house. As a matter of fact, later on in chapter 42, verse number 7, the Lord is going to say, Job said those things that were right about me. You guys did not. Isn't that kind of incredible? Because look at the things that Zophar has said. That God's wisdom is this and this and this and this, and he's great and mighty. And they said, they have not said the right thing about me. Now, verbally, they did. But you understand that our relationship with God goes way beyond language. It goes way beyond, wah, 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 wah. It's what I do with what I say that really codifies my relationship with the Lord. Now, verse number 15. If you'll do that, if you'll do what I tell you, God's not going to tell you this. Apparently, he's not around here. And so I'm going to be his little mouthpiece, and if you'll do what I tell you, for then thou shalt lift up thy face without spot, or without embarrassment, without shame. And thou shalt be steadfast, and thou shalt not fear, because thou shalt forget thy misery. Is that true? Have you forgotten, some of the greatest heartbreaks of your life? Do you still remember? Now, here's the deal. There's not a family in here that's not been touched by some kind of tragedy. Medical, financial. I remember, I've got one brother. It's me and Paul David. And our mom died in 1977, the same day that Elvis Presley died. We'd never had anybody die in our immediate family before. I didn't know what it was like. What? Mom did what? She'd been in the hospital, had spinal meningitis, was in a coma for 10 days, and then died. We had never experienced anything like that before. Never. And, boy, there for a while, your mom, for mercy's sake, your mother is gone. The one that you ran to when you stubbed your toe. I didn't go to my dad. My dad would be, go see Mom. And so I just saved the middleman. I just go to Mom to begin with. And she was the one, she'd hug and kiss and pat and, put the Band-Aid on. She did all that. Well, now that was gone. And I remember the few weeks, I'd see her clothes in the closet and I'd be like, ooh, wow. I'd pass her favorite restaurant, in Lakeland on South Florida Avenue, which was Reese Cliff's, which is still there, by the way. She loved their pie. They had homemade pie. And so, but here's what happened after a while. The memories of my mother are as vivid as they ever have been, but there is no hurt anymore. And it hasn't been for years. For years. And people come by the house. You know how people want to have the magic words? Especially preachers. You know, they read something in the book, ooh, that'd be good to say about now. And so they come, and I appreciate everybody that came and, you know, tried to comfort. And they did. But one guy came. I don't remember who it was. I wish I did. But one guy said something to me that put everything in perspective that I did not understand. I'm not even sure I believed it at that time, but I do now. He said, Jim, the hornet of memory will fly again, but time will remove the stinger. And actually, the hornet of memory will fly again, but God will remove the stinger. And you know what happened? After a while, I could go and look at Mom's clothes. Now, I wish I had a closet full of her clothes just to celebrate. I remember when she wore that. There is no more hurt. That's what God will do. So the memory will be there. It will always, I will never forget my mom or my dad now. And so you will never forget the people in your life that have been removed. You know, the memory, and I don't think you should forget the impact that they've had in your life, but the hurt goes away. God is so gracious. Now, in Hebrew culture, you could mourn for 40 days. 40 days. And then it was over. And it's like in every other culture, kids, they'll reach a certain age and then they'll have a rite of passage. We, North Americans, we invented adolescence. Did you know that? We are the ones that added this extra 30 years into a kid's life that he can be a kid. Yeah, but in parts of Africa, they will send a 12-year-old boy out in the bush and he'll have to kill a lion with a spear. And when he kills that lion with a spear, he comes back a man and he is treated like a man from that day forward. There's a change in him because there's a change of expectation. And so there's something very significant about, and I'm not sure exactly how they did it, but 40 days. We're going to mourn for 4 days. After 40 days, it's over. So can you be in that much control of your emotions? Well, apparently, because, you know, the Lord told the Jews to do this. And so he said, well, it's just going to pass away like water. Verse 17, and thine age, or the rest of your life, shall be clearer than the noonday. Folks, that's just simply not true. That's just not true. Okay, you're going to have tragedy A. Is there a tragedy B somewhere out there? Yes. Is there a tragedy D out there? Yes. So well, how are you going to handle those? How did you handle tragedy A? It's the same way. It's the same pattern, the same process. Thou shalt shine forth, thou shalt be as the morning. Now he's kind of changed his tune a little bit. Can you see? He's beat the man. He's curb stomped him. He has curb stomped Job now for about 16 verses. I didn't know what that meant till about a year ago. You know what curb stomp means? I'd heard that term and heard it. I said, what in the world? So I looked it up. And it's pretty grisly. Gangs do this to rival gang members. They will take a rival gang member and put him down on the sidewalk, and where the curb, meets the road, they'll open his mouth, and they'll put his mouth on the curb, and they'll kick him in the back of the head and just destroy his mouth, and that's called curb stomp. And I don't see how you could do that to a human being, but that apparently is that's what a curb stomp is. That's what this guy did to Job emotionally. He just curb stomped him. And verse number 18, you'll be secure because there's hope. Yea, thou shalt dig about thee. You're going to be like a field full of wells that, man, there's water everywhere. And thou shalt take thy rest in safety. Also thou shalt lie down, and none shall make thee afraid. Yea, many shall make suit unto thee. People are going to come. Where have these people been, by the way? These folks that are now stroking his, oh, Joe, we are so sorry. We are glad you're back. We're glad you're rich again. We're glad you got your money back. Pal, old buddy, old friend. Yeah, now, you know. So what in many instances, what happens when you go through some kind of a really nasty tragedy? You don't hear from people, you know. They have other stuff to do. And then there's the Zophar and the Bildads and the Elihu's. And he said, a lot of people will make suit unto thee. But the eyes of the wicked shall fail. It means they're going to die. And so Zophar is prophesying here, Job, you're going to die. This is so bad. You are so wicked, you're going to die. And he says, they shall not escape, and their hope shall be as the giving up of the ghost. Well, wow, there you go. That's what you want to hear. But doesn't this stuff, it kind of reminds me of how Christians comfort one another. Sister Charlotte mentioned jealousy. How much jealousy fuels and is the engine of church relationships. Somebody is blessed over here, somebody gets a good report, you know, a good review, and they get a bonus, and that's going to, well, that should have been me. Somebody gets a new car, that should have been me. They don't like the way you look in that new car. And you get a new house. You know, your kids graduate with a straight A. Oh, it should have been my kid if my kid had studied. If they had just appreciated my child more. If that teacher hadn't hated my kid, that teacher was out to get my kid anyway because they wanted to keep him off the A honor roll. And just all this tension that goes on. And if we really loved each other the way God loved us, we would rejoice when one another, you know, you're blessed because that's our Father doing that. And then when there's a brokenness, we were talking about this today in class about the husband-wife relationship. And you ladies, you're more emotionally in tune than men are. I think everybody in the world knows that. You think universally. Men don't think universally. Everything is not connected. By the way, did you know, you ladies, you have a part of your brain, it's called the amygdala. And in the amygdala, that seems to be where the emotional base is located. Did you know that your amygdala has twice the blood flow than a man's does? So there's a reason. And God did that on purpose. I'm thankful that somebody in this world is compassionate. You know, I'm really glad that there are people in this world that will go, oh, I'm so sorry. But under normal circumstances, that ain't going to be the man. And so there are times when you ladies, you get dark because of some physical things going on or some emotional things, or you get impacted and the lights go out. And I was telling our guys today, I said, guys, when that happens, don't say, babe, I'm going to go turn the lights back on. I'm going to find the breaker's out. I'm going to fix it for you. I'm going to fix that and you'll be okay. That's what guys do. We communicate for resolution. She don't want you to fix it. She wants you to come in and sit down with her and hug her in the dark. You know, that's what she needs. That's what she wants. But guys don't go home. This is going to sound awful. But guys don't go home to relate. They go home to rest. They've worked, and you ladies work too. I'm not saying you don't. I'm just saying when a guy's through working, that's his box. He's been in that 8-hour box, 9-hour box, 10-hour, whatever. He's done it. Do what? Or 11, yeah. However big that box is. So when you go home, if there's a problem, you want to get it fixed as fast as you can so you can sit down and tell me if I'm wrong, but ladies, there are times when you don't want your husband to fix you. That's kind of an insult. You know, in essence, he's saying, is that all that's bothering you? Here, let's just turn this on and it's fixed. You need to talk. You need to work this in. And you know, there've been a lot of times we've laid in bed and I'm just, you know, huh? Lord, well, I'm just about it. Y'all, you know what I'm talking about. You guys know what I'm talking about. And so, and and that meant that both of you weren't sleeping. Neither one of you were sleeping. That's exactly right. And so, it's kind of off track of Job chapter 11, but the thing is, we Zophar. I don't know what kind of husbands these guys were. And their wives were probably rejoicing that they were at Job's house. And I don't know if they were texting back and forth, but the wife, you can stay another 2 or 3 days. There'd be no problem at all, But I can just sense this nasty, sour disposition of, wow, if you were like me, everything would be great. And that's just not the case. And so we, I look at this thing, and the more I read in this book, the more I appreciate Job. I really do. He's in the whirlpool right now, and he doesn't know why. He really does. He doesn't know what God and Satan have talked about. He doesn't know, but he's hanging by the stuff, and these guys are trying to cut the ropes and get him to cuss God. And I'm sure his wife was probably saying, "Won't you cuss God so he'll put you out of my misery?" But none of that happened. And so, can you imagine? We're going to go after this. Can you imagine in heaven? All these great characters of the Bible sitting around. And here's Adam. And somebody just arrives in heaven. And they walk by Adam, and he goes, I know. Bad, I know, I got you. Okay. But can you imagine Job in heaven? And him saying, man, I wish I'd have known, but I didn't. And I'm glad, could you, them just discussing their story, and I'm sure that nothing like this is happening in heaven. I'm aware of that, but I'm thankful for, I'm thankful for friendships that are authentic. And I don't want you to ever think you got to put on, try to impress anybody, especially if you're a preacher, because I honestly don't. I just don't like that. You ever been around anybody like that? Especially preachers. Been around guys that have this idea, you must think I'm wonderful. And I'm thinking, no, I really don't. I really don't. Because I put my britches on just like anybody else does, and so do you. So anyway, all right, next week we'll be in chapter 12. Job is going to reply to the young kid. What is this older gentleman now, very wealthy, former mover and shaker, he's going to address this young guy. So what should age say to youth when youth is like this? Okay? We're going to find out next week. And then Sunday night, we're walking through this thing on Ask This, and it's the question that you can ask about anything in life, and the question now we've already covered a couple of weeks. It's, in this season of my life, considering my past experiences, my current circumstances, and my future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing to do? What's the wise thing to do? Now, don't ask what's the legal thing to do. This is a better question than that. What's the convenient thing to do? What's the profitable thing to do? What's the fun thing to do? Don't ask that question. Ask what's the wise thing to do with reference to these three perspectives in life. And so we're doing that on Sunday night. And I'm starting that Friday up at CPM, Caring People Ministry. We're going to do that up there as well. Y'all ready to go home? Are you hungry? It sounds like it out there. All right, well, let's pray, and I'll let y'all get out of here then. Lord, thank you for the day, for your goodness, your word, your blessing, friendships that we have here on earth, and I'm thankful that you love us in Jesus' name. Amen.